Let's work on this first test. That customer has not reached their rental limit. How are we going to test for that? There's a couple of things that we need to know. We need to know how many they currently have rented, right? So we know if they have reached it or not. The other thing we need to know is what type of customer they are, right? Because the standard customer can have 2 rentals and a premium customer can have 4. So there's really 2 things that we need to know. So how are we going to figure out how many they have? Well, if we look at the rental table, it lists the customer ID and it has a null by all those that are not returned, and those are the ones that are rented. So we can ask the question, just give us the customer ID from rental. And here we want it where, this is the big deal, right? Where we need to know that it's this customer that we're looking for. So customer equals, and this will be a parameter. We'll just put values in there for now to do tests. And the return date. And this is a big deal, right? The return date is null. So it's not how many they've rented all over time, but how many they currently have rented. Let's run this and see what kind of results we get. So it looks like we have 1 for customer 2. Let's see if we change that. Let's see what customer 5 has. That's an empty result, so they have 0 currently out. What about customer 7? And we can see that they have 4. So this tells us how many. Now it's showing us the number of records, and so we're counting how many. So how can we tell what this is going to be in our code? We won't be able to be there to count the number of records. There are a couple of ways to do this. We could do it with our count value that we've used before, or there is this other value called row count that is available to us, and the row count contains an integer that identifies how many rows were just selected. So I'm going to go ahead and select this so it'll print it out for us, and we can see what that looks like. So let's run this again, and we've got 7 here. We see those 4 records that were returned, and we see that row count has a value 4. Let's try it with 2. And we see that there was 1 record returned and row count has a value 1. What about when there were none? So 5, we see that our result is empty and row count returns 0. So this is a way that we can know how many is using that row count. The next thing we need to figure out is what type of customer they are. And we can get this information from the user table, right? Because that keeps track of the customer type. So we get that from user 1, and this is going to be for that same customer. So we're going to say customer ID, except in the user table it's user ID equals, and here we'll set it to the same as above, where user ID equals 5. And let's see what we get. We still get an empty result from that first select. It tells us 0 is the value of row count, and that's a standard customer. What about customer 2? We want to change it here and change it here, and we execute it. We see there's 1 record, row count is 1, and that's a standard customer. What about 7? We'll change it in both these places and see. Here we get those 4 rows, row count is equal to 4, and customer type is premium. So these are the 2 pieces of information that we need to find out whether they have reached their max or not.